So our final segment, we have a panel led by Q Harrison, and it is where will NFTs be in a year? And if you're just in this last session, you said it's an awesome panel. So I'm very much looking forward to watching it. And so without further ado, a panel, where will NFTs be in a year, led by Q Harrison Terry, with panelists Jessica Ewed, Dr. Corey Petty, and Dimitrik Ferguson.
Yo, what's up? What's up? What's up? This is going to be an excellent session. Today, I have with me both Corey and Dee from the Bitcoin podcast. You all have been talking crypto for, man, has it been over almost 8 years now?
Something like that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a while. Well, we've had the show. The show officially started in 2015, and we started in crypto like 2013-ish. 2012, 2013.
2012, 2013, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Wow. And that means you've seen just about everything that's happened in crypto. So today's topic on the future of NFTs should be just one more trend that you're about to observe and comment on, huh?
Yeah,
This is
for sure.
It's been one for a long time. I'm excited to get into it.
For sure, for sure. And then we also have joining us Jessica Ragsy, one of the more, I would say, phenomenal artists that have entered the NFT space. You've really taken a grassroots approach in just introducing your NFT collection slowly but surely. But the momentum that you've had has just been astonishing. I mean, you're selling out pieces left and right here. What is your take on the future of NFTs? Are you excited to have that conversation with us today, Jessica?
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so about the space, and it's been really amazing just seeing all the new innovations still in the NFT space. It's really inspiring, and yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And I mean, thanks for making the time to join us. So as people probably already know, I'm Q Harrison Terry, also known as NFTQT. I go around and document my insights and share those for many people to explore. Today, you're now watching this presentation at Texylvania, and we're going to get in a conversation about the future of NFTs. One of the first segments that I want to jump into is I just want to do a quick poll around the room. How many people think NFTs are in a bubble? And if you're watching live, you can go ahead and drop that thought in the chat. We'll look at that in a second here. But just for the people that are here on stage, NFTs, bubble, not a bubble, why not? I'm going to just start with you, Petty, and you can go around.
So if I'm going to define bubble as in like overhyped based on what they currently do, I'd say yes. They're in a bubble. Would you like to know why?
Okay. I mean, no, okay. We got a yes. Ragsy, what are you thinking?
You know, I do have a lot of thoughts on it. It's kind of like a yes and no for me, but a yes. I'm kind of been as an artist. For those of people who don't know, I'm a professional artist that does gallery shows, right, as well as the NFTs, and I can't help but make the comparison to when the contemporary art bubble kind of burst in 2008. And it seems to be echoing, the NFT space seems to be echoing that whole thing with the hype and people kind of rushing into the market to buy things. So, you know, I think it's a bubble, but I think with the NFT space and the arts, you know, I feel like it can still rebound again in the future. Like just because the bubble, I don't know, first, let's say in early Q1 next year, doesn't mean that in a year from now, the prices aren't going to be up and higher than they've ever been. So I think it's interesting to see how this space is going to play out because it's so new. But I do see some things that are considered NFTs that may be, in my opinion, overpriced, but we'll see. You know, we'll see what happens.
For sure. Dee, what's your thoughts? Are we in a bubble on the NFT front?
70 yes, 30 no. It's yes and no on the NFT.
Yes and no. All right, all right.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to elaborate on that.
All
And
right.
Petty, you get the award for just answering the question, yes or no. I feel like everybody else on stage. Where's the succinctness at? Come on, everyone's like unsure. Is it a bubble or is
time
it
to
not
talk.
a bubble?
I said 70-30. Yes. Yes, it is a bubble because anytime someone sells a picture of a rock for $1.3 million, we got some craziness going on. Right. I say no because it's the start of this new market, and it's just illiquid collectibles, right? That's a market that exists. It's always going to exist. We can't tell people what they can and can't value. Just like if somebody tries to get me to part with all my collections of X-Men cards from the 90s for like less than 5 figures, I'm going to tell them to go somewhere, right? Like it's an illiquid collectible market. So I say yes and no. I'm not answering your question, Q.
So all right. So I'm gonna give everybody one more time to go around. Just quick. Raise your hand if you think it's a bubble. And then okay, so we got raise your hand if you think it's a bubble. Sounds like everybody thinks it's a bubble. All right. So for the people that are watching this live, it sounds like the consensus here is NFT market as we currently stand, we believe it's a bubble. The reasons why I think it's a bubble is there are just simply way too many projects in the NFT space right now. It's really hard to track. It's really hard to stay abreast. And even if you wanted to be an where I would even recommend a person to start because, there's a new 10K project literally every second now. I mean, a 10K project meaning you have an NFT collection that has about 10,000 pieces and you're trying to, sell those 10,000 pieces either through a minting process or crazy resales on the secondary market. And I think CryptoPunks, when those happened, that wasn't yesterday. That wasn't last year. That was, several years ago. And they came into the mainstream after having had a chance to breathe and exist and kind of be like, have a Verge culture around the collection, the community. You had a moment for all that stuff to grow and manifest into what it is today. And I think everyone's trying to just put all of that into a 2 or 3 week span and see if they can replicate this CryptoPunk essence. And there are some projects that have come close, and there are some great community builders out there. But I think that when you do that, you take away the essence of what an NFT is. And Ragsy, you've built an actual community around your NFT project. And just for the people that are watching, could you briefly describe, kind of the thought process of what that is? And I would love for you to just kind of go into, your NFTs and what got you started.
Oh, thank you so much for asking. Yeah, so I did, as I was really nervous to launch the series. I knew what I wanted to do. As a professional artist, I was taking this NFT thing extremely seriously with the innovation, as in I wasn't looking at it as a cash grab. I wasn't looking at it from necessarily a business standpoint of what can I create that people are going to buy, that people are going to run to buy, it's going to get the price really high and people can flip. I wasn't really looking at it that way when I was creating my series. I was looking at it as, what do I want my Genesis series to be? What do I want it to represent? And why will people want to buy it? Aside from being like an investable asset. So those were the questions I asked myself. And it actually took me, as simplistic as the series is, and the series is called Bite Candy, it actually took me, I would say, 3 to 6 months to develop it and really think of the concept, because I really wanted to create art. I really wanted to create something that wasn't just a cool thing to have and flip, but something that people would really want, but kind of understand in a way, regardless of if they were familiar with my art or not. So that was important to me. So my series is called Bite Candy, BYTE, and they're digital hearts made of things that resemble Lego bricks. I'm known in the art world for building these cool creations out of Lego bricks. And on the hearts, there's a little bite, right, in the corner missing. And they say snarky, nerdy, and I would say untraditional phrases on them, things that you wouldn't normally find on those, candy hearts on Valentine's Day. But I still wanted them to kind of echo them, I can't think of a single person that really actually liked getting those crappy hearts on Valentine's Day, right? They're kind of like disgusting and cheesy in a way. So I kind of wanted to capture a little bit of that. So there's a glitch in all my hearts, like they're kind of like imperfect, but people really love them. And the messages on them, I feel like, are really resonating with collectors. And when I launched the series, I didn't know if people were going to buy them, simply because I didn't know how much of my audience actually had crypto or had Ethereum or knew what NFTs were. And I was pleasantly surprised. I started selling out of them. My approach was very different than a lot of these community launch projects where they launch 10,000 and people run to buy it. I wanted to still be really creating my art and my pieces. So what I did is I create them one by one, and I'm still creating them one by one. And I put it on the blockchain, and if somebody loves it, they buy it, and if they don't, they pass, right? And they have been selling out. I think I just minted 1 or 2 last week, and I think those are the only 2 that haven't sold, are the recent ones. Everything else has sold. So I took a really different approach than creating this, I call it the anxiety effect of, it's dropping, guys, go run and get it. You know, there's been a lot of that in the NFT space. I really wanted it to just be kind of art for art's sake, and people see it and they're like, yes, that's the one I want, and they buy, and they feel special because I only do one of a kind. So each candy that I make is unique. And yeah, it's really been a joy making them and minting them, but it's really been a joy seeing the community of collectors that have purchased them, and why they're buying them and why they like them. And I was very surprised. A lot of people just told me they bought them because they just wanted to have it in their portfolio because they thought it was funny. Like scrolling through a portfolio, a message that says something funny on it. It was interesting.
Yeah, I mean the profile and just the whole collection that you've created with your NFTs, I think is actually quite genius because it's uniquely you, right? It reflects who you are. It's like a piece that lives in the Ragsy universe, and you know it's fitting, no pun intended there. And I think that is what the future of NFTs looks like when it correlates to art. And so when you say, you know, what is an artist's take on an NFT project, I don't think it looks that much like a 10K. You know, you do have some exceptions to the rule, like Tom Sachs. He's coming to the space and he has a really cool project that he's unveiled, and it has a 10K-esque flavor to it. The same thing with Damien Hirst. But when you get away from some of these blue chip artists and some of their endeavors in the NFT space, the one thing that I think a traditional artist that is just starting out, they might not have all the resources or all the tools, and they're looking at getting into NFTs, they really should be thinking about one of ones. And how do you create a piece that in 3 to 4 years is trading for 3,000-4,000 ETH, right? And is that unheard of? Is that impossible? No. I mean, look at Beeple. Beeple is the with his everydays is the largest NFT transaction to date, and that's $69 million. It's literally one of his digital art pieces from when he started to that point in time when he sold the transaction. So there was almost 15 years worth of work there, and that's notable, right? I think the one thing that is also interesting about that transaction is Mike or Beeple wasn't necessarily a traditional artist in the sense that he was making art, you know, in another space before he came. He was a digital native artist, and there's so many digital native artists. I mean, Dee and Corey, I consider you all as digital native artists. Like the art that you create, the show, the Bitcoin podcast, the commentary that you spin off, it lives first digitally. You know, people take that, clip it out. They might put it in a documentary. They might put it on like, you know, Cointelegraph. But it all started as like a digital audio file. And so when I think about that having value, that maturing, that space kind of showcasing what's possible, and we get away from the traditional art sense, what is your take on like the future of NFTs? Like, what do you think where does like for a journalist, for a podcaster, for someone that's creating digital files daily like yourselves, where do you think that NFTs could be in just a year or 2 years time from now?
You go first.
I was hoping you would go first, but I'll go first. I mean, it's really hard to tell, like, because I think the value that Jessica, she's saying is that the value is in the community. right? So for us, if we ever created NFTs, the value is going to be in like how our community can see that value and then also propagate that value outward. I guess the future of NFTs for me that get exciting that nobody really talks about, which I think is really the huge deal, is like the creator, the person that creates it, like they keep getting paid when it resells, right? If you make an NFT collection that's popular enough, you've got like recurring revenue ad infinitum, right? Like, especially if that community stays popular and it keeps selling and has a high floor, then you make one piece of art. And every time that piece of art sells or resells in the future, you're making something from it, right? I think that's the thing that's kind of like, that's the pivotal change when the difference between digital art and like regular art. If I take, well, I don't have any art. Yeah, I do. I got a little leaf back there. If I take that little leaf and I sell it, I get 100% of the proceeds, right? The person that made that little leaf, they don't get anything. Like it's gone. So,
and then to build off that, Corey, I mean, what Dee is saying with, perpetual royalties of some sort, right now, one of the biggest challenges for that, if you're an individual creator, is let's say you build your smart contract and you put that on OpenSea. That smart contract, the attributes in it. So if I get a 6% royalty on every time my piece is transacted and I program that on OpenSea, that doesn't transfer over to another marketplace. So if I'm on Rarible or if I'm on, the next XYZ marketplace, like blockchain interoperability is something that I think is needed in order for Dee's vision to really be manifested.
Mm-hmm.
Petty, what do you think on that front? Like, I think that we're getting a little deep, but let's keep it understandable for the general audience. But I think how do we get to that vision where the artist doesn't get screwed? Because there's so many ways to still screw an artist over, and they might be thinking one thing, and then they realize that this piece has been transacted 10 times and they didn't get any cut.
Yeah, I want to take in a bit like a small history lesson, and this will also answer why I think why we're hyped, right? Like why it's like a bubble, and it basically comes around standards in a lot of ways. So if we go back to the early 2017s when the ICO boom happened, what happened was what facilitated the ICO boom was the standardization of the ERC20 token. That's what most tokens are. Like when you think about a cryptocurrency coin, that's usually built around the ERC20 token, which is a standard on Ethereum, which was the most popular first smart contracting platform, right? So you can build a smart contract that allowed you to create and exchange ERC20 tokens, right? They made that really easy, which means that like people didn't have to understand too many technical weeds to then start implementing these tokens and then marketing around them. And it blew up, right? And why it blew up originally, in my opinion, was because it was twofold. There was nothing else to do in Ethereum, and you had this pool of people with a bunch of excess income from Ethereum and Bitcoin and things like that, who wanted to do something with it. And so these tokens, these early projects came out, the early ICOs, they're like, this is what I want to do. This is exactly the ethos, the kinds of things that I'm getting into. And it's really easy to do with the money I already have, this other Bitcoin and Ethereum stuff, right? And so they just blew up. And then people saw that and like, well, I'm gonna do that too. And then that kept happening over and over and over and over again. And the whole space blew up into the 2017 ICO boom. But what happened was, instead of every single project that came through getting all of the attention of everyone in the entire crypto ecosystem, there were too many projects. You couldn't keep up, just like you said earlier with NFT projects now. So people had to start changing their marketing and either putting a tremendous amount of money into marketing or going into a further specialization or niche and going after a specific pool of people that had some value attached to it. And that's then how they got attention to people, like pay attention to them, buy their token, trade it, use it, whatever. And we're seeing that same thing happen today. So like the ERC20 token, as far as features go, isn't the best case scenario for how you would make a fungible token. It was just the first and most widely used. Just like today, the NFT or the ERC 721 token, which is a standard on Ethereum, isn't the best case scenario for what a non-fungible token would be. But it's the first one that blew up with CryptoKitties and what's been proliferated throughout. And we're seeing the same thing happen today. And so when you talk about royalties not being baked into that standard, Well, that may take a while because now that we have the standard, we have larger marketplaces that allow you to go from one project to the next. Or like I minted it on CryptoKitties, I extracted it from that thing or some other game for that matter, and I put it on OpenSea to make money. But it's like that only works is because there's a standard that goes across it.
So for that standard, do you think that we're going to see a ERC 22 created for artists, and then maybe a ERC 2023 for games?
Yeah.
Is that
so
like the future?
Eventually, we'll get to new standards that then alter that original functionality to include things like royalties, or like we just may have this like modular royalty standard that allows you to combine them in certain ways, like puzzle pieces. So that way, later on down the line, when artists jump in, because like right now, y'all are on the frontier, y'all are on the bleeding edge of the new technology, and so you unfortunately are going to jump into something that may not be its best case scenario in the future, but you're also at a point to experience and discover that before everyone else does, and then play around with it in new creative ways that the engineers who build it haven't thought of yet. And so like, I think there's going to be new puzzle pieces that like incorporate things like fungibility or like persistent royalties and all this other cool stuff down the line. We're just not there yet.
So if someone wanted to get started and like started to rethink standards or contracts in general, like what is the best way to do that? Because I think a lot of people get stuck, and you all have seen many entrepreneurs try, succeed, try and fail. And like from your observation, what would you say is the best way to kind of, play with the standard and create that trend per se?
For me, do it. Like play with it, build one, try and sell it, figure out where the problems are, and then talk about those problems as much as you can, and then find interesting ways of getting around those problems. Because more often than not, like you find kind of ad hoc solutions, and at some point these ways of fixing the problems you have are too cumbersome. So someone then finds like, I have a better way to do that, and that's where like a real innovative standard comes from.
Got it. All right, I want to go back around the room real fast. Patty mentioned something, Ragsy, and this was earlier when he talked about CryptoKitties. It was a blockchain game essentially, and we're seeing a lot of blockchain games just kind of coming up to play really just this past year. I've seen Axie Infinity, Ember Sword, and a few others. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, NFT gaming will probably continue to be a trend for the future. How are you seeing it as an artist? Like, is this an opportunity for you to have your own video game per se, or like, have you thought about it in that regard? Because it is still a very greenfield opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I think most people discovered crypto and NFTs because, and correct me if I'm wrong, because of Bitcoin, right? Because of what was going on with Bitcoin. I found crypto, it was the opposite for me because of CryptoKitties. So it was funny you mentioned that, because I'm an artist, and a friend of mine was like, you have to look at this. It was a couple of years ago, maybe early 2018. She's like, there's these digital cats and you breed them and and it's called CryptoKitties. And I was just like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? I'd heard of Bitcoin before and stuff, but wasn't like so into crypto. And that was kind of for me when I had my aha, what is this? This is going to be big for art. So I actually was happy that my friend gave me that tip early and I learned about it, because that's how I kind of got into crypto and the NFT market, was because I thought those kitties were so fascinating. And I will tell you, because I've spoken with a few like other known artists, in the gallery space and with what they do. And there's a lot of them that are working on developing some kind of game, through their art, because, we feel that that's going to be the next thing. It's kind of going to be this idea of a utility NFT, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, you can have, this is just an example, one of my bite candies, maybe you bought this, but maybe what you didn't know is that it's actually means something else in some kind of metaverse somewhere, or will be important somewhere in the future. And I can't speak for every artist that's making NFTs right now, but I do see a lot of professional artists that are taking their time coming into this NFT space because they're working on developing some sort of game that's going to really engage the collectors and just kind of having it in a wallet. I mean, having it in a wallet is a cool flex, right? If you have a crypto punk or something in your wallet, it's like, oh, automatic respect. But I do see some artists really taking their time, developing different kinds of art that's going to be considered gaming. And I think it's going to be huge, not just for artists, but obviously the gamers and the people who stream with these massive followings. I mean, this space, it just blows my mind. Like, I don't think I can fathom like how big the gaming space is going to be and how important it's going to be to blockchain.
No, that was a wonderful segment. I know we're running short on time. So D, I do want to close out on a few more things with you. Let's talk about, Raxi brought up utilities, NFTs. When I think about the future of NFTs, I do think that there's a huge opportunity for, people being able to take their NFT and create a level of access that hasn't been, it hasn't been an easy way to do that in the last, let's say 10, 20 years, especially because we're seeing things like, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is really, I think, a great case study where, it's one thing to many people that observe it. It's another thing to the person that holds it. And then it's also paying this dividend and the projects that are spinning out around it that really the only beneficiaries are the people that own the NFTs are. What is your take for like the future of utility and NFTs?
Oh man, I can't say it's my take. I actually have to give a shout out to a friend of mine named Stephen Mackey, and he is the founder of Amentum. But the governments can use NFTs. Governments can issue NFTs to participants in their country. If you've given money to certain projects, you get issued a token from the government that shows that, yeah, you are participating in the government's finances. You are participating in these projects, right? And then you get tax kickbacks because they can provably see that you contributed to these projects, right? And then there's royalties like these standards that Corey was talking about. If they are built in, well, hey man, I gave money to build that highway over there, and you put tolls on it. Can I get a fraction of a fraction of a fraction, right? Like if this is my government, right? So the possibilities there are really endless when it comes to actually using the NFT standard to do real world things. And those are the two. If I could close this out on a powerful note, if you want to be the guy or the person, the woman, the person that is making the standard that allows for like you to get recurring royalties, you might want to tackle that one. And if you can peel these digital goods and there's a bridge between the digital and physical, if you could tackle that problem too, all right, those are $2 billion problems right there. So is that good?
Man, that was incredible. I think that there's really no other way to end this show, but you definitely gave away some good game. I think one thing I've learned just from this conversation, from talking to all three of you, is it sounds like the pioneers, you want to be early to the game. You don't want to be locked into one thing. Like, it pays to be agnostic right now because no one really knows what is the right way forward, and things will change inevitably. But at the same time, it pays to also be thinking right now about some of the contracts underneath these projects. Don't do a project just because it's cool. Look at the context. Go find a developer. Spend some time reading the dev docs and understanding what is actually going in, not only from a metadata standpoint, but also from a usability standpoint, right? Like, what is the utility to the end user that doesn't know anything that's going on the back end? Because if you understand that gives you the most access, and ultimately you get a chance to build the future of NFTs. And we'll be talking about you on a stage here soon.